Being away for college for the first time can be stressful. In fact, a recent study shows 85% of students report stress on a daily basis. Sherry Goldsmith is a life coach and relationship expert, joining us this morning with advice on talking to your daughter, especially about going away to school. How are you? It's good to meet you. Thanks for coming in. So boys go to school too. Is the things you talk about with your daughter different or separate than what you might talk about with your son going away to college?
It's a little different. Yeah. It's a little different. I think there's things, the 5 tips that I talk about, it's very important that you hit on those before she goes away.
All right, well, let's talk about that. And number 1 at the top of your list is healthy eating habits and activity.
That's right. Healthy eating, I know, it's something that you probably have discussed before with her, but on top of that, the more important thing is exercise, because exercise is going to relieve stress and anxiety for her. It's a very good coping method.
Yeah, you talk about, I guess, trying to make that part of your regular routine.
Exactly.
And work that into to make that a habit, just like everything else.
Right.
All right. Next, you say talk about fears.
Talk about fears. She's probably a little anxious, a little nervous about going away, leaving her family, leaving her friends, whether she'll make new friends. So just talk through it, be very pragmatic about the solutions, be very solution oriented, and don't bring emotion into it.
I would think girls are more open to talking about something like that than a guy that age would be. As I'm just saying from guy experience, I don't want to talk about that kind of stuff with my parents.
Possibly.
Okay. The next thing you say, decide on how often you should communicate, which in, the days we went to college, it was a lot different back then.
Absolutely.
But now it's you got the cell phone and boom, you're right there.
Absolutely. And that's something you need to think about. Decide beforehand how much you're going to communicate. Because with technology today, you can be communicating every 2 minutes.
Right.
But is that good for her? Does that help her become independent and solve her own problems? So decide how much you're going to talk beforehand.
You also want to differentiate between times when you're just calling to say hi or times when you really have an issue you need to talk about.
That's right.
You got to differentiate between those two. All right, let's take a look at the rest of the tips. You talk about resources available on campus, and then finally a frank talk about drug use, drinking, and date rape. Very important.
Right, very important. They all go together usually. So the 2 things you need to remember about that is the one thing is have a buddy that you stick with for the night. Talk to her about that. And also don't drink out of a glass if you put it down somewhere.
I know Megan's talked to me about that from time to time. Never take an open glass. Good advice from Sherry. And for more on Sherry, and you also have a new book, 31 Ways to Find Your Inner Sass. So that's good. And you can go to our website, fox45now.com, and click on Fox 45 in the morning. So Sherry, good to meet you.
Nice
Thanks
to
for
meet
coming
you
in.
too.
How's the book doing? Good?
Doing great.
All right, it's doing great.